Welcome back to a journey through a mirror tunnel of endless reflections. A wormhole that twists today's realities into tomorrow's unsettling possibilities. Here, every step reveals a paradox. Every turn, a deeper layer of the unknown. This is where technology, human nature, and the future converge in paradoxical reflections. This is Paradoxed. Submitted for your consideration, Lieutenant Heather Gottlieb, a decorated combat veteran and the first test subject for Project Fearless. It was meant to be a breakthrough, a drug that eliminates mankind's oldest emotion, fear. They called it liquid courage. And while the battlefield seemed like the perfect proving ground, the drug found its way beyond the barracks, spilling into the streets. But humanity soon discovered that fear isn't just an emotion. It's the invisible fence between civilization and chaos. In a world where fear no longer holds us back, I invite you to explore what happens when courage becomes a curse. Heather felt the familiar twinge of fear as she brought the vial to her lips. But the moment the liquid hit her bloodstream, the feeling evaporated. Her heart rate slowed, her breathing steadied, and the world seemed clearer, sharper, almost inviting her to step into danger. We called it the next step in warfare. No hesitation, no panic, just pure focused action. When I first took liquid courage, the change was immediate. My heartbeat steadied, my vision cleared, and fear disappeared. On the battlefield, it was exactly as promised. I didn't flinch under fire, didn't retreat when the enemy closed in. Fear was no longer the enemy, only the targets ahead. But the thing about fear is it's not a weakness. It's also the voice that tells you when to stop. What began as a military experiment soon found its way to the streets. Criminals and thrill seekers got their hands on it too. It wasn't long before liquid courage became a hot commodity on the black market, sold alongside weapons and adrenaline-fueled fantasies in dark alleys and high-end parties. For some, it was the ultimate rush, a way to silence fear forever. But for others, it was a ticket to self-destruction. 6 months after Project Fearless began its combat trials, the first black market doses appeared in Miami. Within a year, it had spread to every major city. By 18 months, liquid courage could be found in high school parking lots. What had taken the military years to develop and refine was now being cooked in basement labs and sold on street corners. There were reports of bank robbers walking straight into gunfire, climbers scaling cliffs without safety gear, and street racers pushing beyond the limits of physics. Fear had been the one thing keeping them alive. Until it wasn't. They called it liquid courage. We called it liquid suicide. At first, it was liberation and everything they promised. No more hesitation, no more second guessing. I felt invincible. But as I watched the chaos spread, I realized something else. Without fear, we don't just lose weakness. We lose judgment. But then, something changed. It wasn't just the fear that disappeared. It was something deeper. The voice that whispered don't when it was time to be cautious. A feeling that kept me alive when every instinct told me to run. People didn't know when to stop, when to retreat, or when to reconsider. It was a new kind of madness, one without the brakes. I remember Private Martinez. Young kid, barely 20. After his first dose, he became our best marksman. Steady hands, perfect focus. But 2 weeks in, he started taking double doses. Said he could still feel traces of fear, wanted to be pure. One night, he walked straight into enemy territory, convinced that he could take out the entire compound alone. Didn't even take cover. Just walked in, firing. His last words over the radio, he was laughing. That's when I realized what we've done. We hadn't created fearless soldiers. We created soldiers who couldn't recognize death even if it was staring at them in the face. The second wave of users learned quickly. They called it hacking fearlessness, learning to microdose and control the effects. Instead of diving headfirst into death, they tried to replace fear with logic, calculated risk assessments, training programs for responsible use, and microdosing to keep just enough fear to survive. Some called it progress. Others called it a losing battle. I watched as the new users tried to adapt, but fearlessness isn't something you can control. You can't pick and choose which fears to keep and which to discard. It's either there or it isn't. Take Dr. Marcus Gunston, neuroscientist and self-proclaimed expert in fear management. He developed what he called the 30% solution, a precise dose meant to eliminate irrational fears while preserving survival instincts. He tested it himself, of course. Scientific method. I watched his presentation at the CDC. He was brilliant, methodical, had charts showing exactly how he'd cracked the code. Then, mid-presentation, a fire broke out in the lecture hall. Everybody ran. Everybody except Dr. Gunston. He stayed to finish his slides, explaining calmly how he'd maintained just enough fear to keep rational decisions. The smoke got thicker. He kept talking. They found him still standing at the podium, third-degree burns, finishing his explanation of why his method was foolproof. I started seeing it everywhere. I saw surgeons lose the fear of mistakes, drivers ignore oncoming trains, and fathers forget the instinct to protect their children. It wasn't bravery. It was recklessness without limits. I tried to warn them. I tried to tell them what I'd learned, that fear was the only thing that kept us human. But no one was listening. They were too busy chasing the intoxicating rush, the silence of fear too liberating. This is an emergency broadcast. Fallout from the memory bank scandal continues to spiral out of control, with reports of widespread memory manipulation linked to a covert operation. Authorities warn that both memories and emotions, especially fear, may have been compromised. Citizens are urged to remain vigilant, question all memories, and take precautions against it. As chaos spreads, the line between reality and illusion is breaking down. Public outcry has intensified, with protests erupting across major cities. First, they rewrote our memories. Now, they've erased our fear. It's not just technology. It's the end of what made us human. If you're hearing this, you're one of the lucky ones. You still know what fear feels like. You still know when to stop. But out there, they don't. We thought fear was the enemy. We were wrong. It was the fence that kept the darkness inside us at bay. Now that fence is gone, and we're the animals we always feared. I'm recording this from a bunker, somewhere safe, or as safe as I can be in a world without fear. But remember, safety is just an illusion. Without fear, chaos is always waiting. Lieutenant Heather Gottlieb learned too late that fear was never the problem. It was humanity's last hope. But in a world where courage becomes a curse, the greatest danger is knowing what we lose when the voice that whispers "don't" falls silent. This is Paradoxed. This is an emergency broadcast. If you're hearing this, you're not alone. The fallout from the memory bank scandal continues to grow, with memory manipulation linked to Authorities urge citizens to question everything, especially your own mind.